We've previously discussed the three fundamental desires we all experience: hedonism, individuation, and duty. Zooming in on individuation, we looked at it through the lens of Alexis Carrel's famous quote, "Man cannot remake himself without suffering, for he is both the marble and the sculptor." Part 1 focused on how remaking oneself requires an understanding of what the marble should look like. There, we explored two archetypical paths to individuation: the Cathedral Builder and the Renaissance Man. In short, the Cathedral Builder focuses on depth in one domain over the course of his life, while the Renaissance Man is at ease wherever he goes because of his breadth of erudition. This essay will focus on another element of Carrel's quote, "Remaking oneself requires suffering, and how that suffering looks for both paths." Any path to individuation has common pain points: the FOMO that may come with occasionally relinquishing hedonistic pleasure, or the loneliness that comes with being misunderstood by those who may not prioritize individuation in their lives. We have discussed this common pain that comes with individuation previously, but what about the unique pains or pitfalls that could come with each archetypical path? Some pains can be avoided, while others simply must be endured by nature of each archetypical path. The Cathedral Builder's pain. The pain of the ego. The Cathedral Builder's pursuit of greatness requires some form of ego. One cannot seriously build a cathedral if one does not wholly believe one is capable of doing so. Terry Pratchett said it well, "You need to believe in things that aren't true. How else can they become?" While it's true that some delusion is necessary for a cathedral to be built where only squalor exists today, danger lurks when the ego's delusions supersede self-awareness. The ego can seduce the cathedral builder into thinking he already is great, a natural talent even, despite the need for the most naturally gifted to devote years of their life before they can become great. In other words, cathedrals aren't built in a day, and they require tremendous skill. These truths become masked when the ego is left unchecked. We all have that one friend who had grand delusions of becoming the next big rapper, starting a unicorn business, or becoming a stud athlete. He had the talent, he just needed to be discovered, or so he thought. Those around him could see the unrealistic delusions for what they were, because they didn't have an ego masking what needed to be done to reach those goals. In the end, he gives up when he faces resistance because he lacks the self-awareness to realistically assess his capabilities relative to his expectations. And perhaps his well-intentioned friends try to temper his expectations, only for this aspiring cathedral builder to disregard those friends as haters, straining the relationship. The pain that comes from failure or damaged relationships can be jarring. It could knock a cathedral builder entirely off the path of individuation, resetting him back on a path of hedonism. The same pain can also ignite what he needs: introspection. Only through careful introspection will he be able to repair his damaged relationships like the prodigal son returning home. And only through self-awareness can he have clarity on what work needs to be done to build his cathedral. As for anyone humbled in life, his path depends on how he responds to his pain. From an outside perspective, avoiding this needless pain has a simple solution: check your ego. But for those pursuing greatness, the ego that yields greatness can quickly devolve into the ego that destroys relationships and dreams. Finding the balance between the idealistic, even delusional, ego and pragmatic self-awareness is a highly personal journey. That path may involve some humbling experiences, or if he overcorrects, he'll spend some time groveling in stagnant navel-gazing. The simplest way for a cathedral builder to know whether he's found the right balance involves inspecting his feelings. Does he feel satisfied with his progress towards building his cathedral? Does he feel satisfied with his personal relationships? If the answer to either is no, then it's worth assessing whether a rebalance is needed. Otherwise, that dissatisfaction will spiral into something counterproductive. The pain of opportunity costs. Occasionally, the cathedral builder will witness greatness in a completely different domain and feel a certain melancholy. Instead of being a world-class chess player, perhaps he could have pioneered a new art movement or served as a tenured professor at a prestigious university. Seeing a window into another potential life is a reminder of something inaccessible to them rather than a new source of potential like it is for the Renaissance man. This is simply a pain the cathedral builder must endure from time to time, because if he lets this pain guide his decisions, he will shift gears and never build his cathedral. For a pain that must be tolerated, there is no one antidote but several ways to cope. Maybe that's through imbibing from time to time by daydreaming about what that alternative path could have looked like. Or you embrace the pain head on and recognize that a little bit of melancholy makes life much more beautiful. Perhaps it helps to avow an alternative path for your next life. And who knows, maybe your cathedral gets constructed sooner than expected, and you're offered a chance at your next life in this life. If you find yourself frequently daydreaming, distraught, or pining for that next life, it might be worth a round of introspection. Perhaps your heart isn't quite into your current path, and it's worth changing the design of your cathedral. And if your heart isn't in agreement with the path you're on, problems that prevent the construction of your cathedral will find you. The pain of past purpose. While avowing an alternative path for a next life can be a helpful cope for the pain of opportunity costs, many find this counterproductive. For those in this camp and fortunate enough to build their cathedral sooner than expected, they experience a different kind of pain, the pain of past purpose. When Lady Luck helps you build your cathedral faster than expected, she leaves a dreadful angst in her wake. Now what? If the joy of every day is put towards the fulfillment of tomorrow's goal, what happens when tomorrow is here? Some achieve all their life's goals and realize that they don't feel any monumental sense of joy after it all. With this good fortune, the monkey's paw curls for many cathedral builders, leaving them depressed and wallowing in the pain of past purpose. The only way out for the cathedral builder is to let go of their past purpose and find a new one. Otherwise, the mind that was necessary for building a cathedral will devour itself without a new problem to chew on. This pain of past purpose explains why retirees experience depression at a higher rate than the general population. The pain of mistakenly building a den of iniquity. A cathedral can become corrupted or a den of iniquity when its builder becomes too focused on the building's progress rather than its purpose. More directly, this is when the builder forgets the intent behind their goal, perhaps through fixating on the measure of a goal instead. This looks like someone who embraces fitness to improve their health, only to obsess over their weight as a proxy for their health. They lose weight too rapidly and subvert what was unhealthy complacency for unhealthy orthorexia. The original purpose for their weight loss becomes lost along the way. Cathedrals can also become corrupted when the vision becomes disconnected from its clergy. Let's say a couple sets a financial goal to pay for their child's university, maybe even medical school. While the parents wrap themselves up in what they think success looks like, they fail to recognize their child's desires. The child reaches adolescence, but doesn't feel that university is the right path for them. They wish to pursue the arts, but the parents, perhaps unwilling to consider the possibility that their focus for the past decade and a half may have been misplaced, dig their heels in when the child speaks of his desires. What started as a cathedral for their child to enjoy became a castle between the parents and their child. Cathedrals are also corrupted when there isn't a clear design, when you aspire to build something great but don't have a clear why. This looks like the person who focused on saving money for retirement, only to realize after early retirement that true joy originated in their work. Regret swells in their heart since they spent their limited time wishing away their most joyful years, all because they let someone with different values and experiences tell them that early retirement will make them happy. If it's not someone specific providing your design, it's the cultural currents surrounding you. And like a fish in water, you may not notice how it envelops you completely, but its principles will osmose into your cathedral if you lack direction yourself. And today's secular culture is filled with iniquities, instant gratification, narcissism, and nihilism. Many people in this culture don't behave in their best interest. They fry their dopamine receptors by engorging themselves with the caloric-rich but nutrient-deficient in all its forms. Junk food versus meals, content versus art, AI summaries versus full books. As much as people say they are repulsed by the vapid, the numbers tell a different story. Is this who you want telling you what to build? Let the world tell you what to build, and like Shelley's Frankenstein, you'll find yourself overflowing with rage at the monstrosity you birthed into this world. You ironically become imprisoned by the very thing you constructed. This is the essence of the pain of mistakenly building a den of iniquities. There are 3 antidotes for ensuring your cathedral is filled with the faithful rather than the wicked. 1. Having a clear motivation for building a cathedral, guided by your own moral principles, not the world's. Revisit those principles over and over again. 2. If your intentions involve what's best for the people you love most, ensure you understand and appeal to their wishes, not your wish for their wishes. 3. Don't let a measure of the thing become the target. Learn how to properly leverage data. The pain of obsession. Every cathedral builder experiences some degree of obsession simply by nature of their commitment towards building a cathedral. That obsession has a ripple effect on everyone around them. For some, the cathedral builder's obsession is a source of inspiration, perhaps to help build the same cathedral or even build one of their own. But for others, it can be ostracizing. Ostracizing in the sense that it is difficult to relate or even intimidating, because the many who are mired with nihilism could not fathom endeavoring to build something great. For those relinquished to the sidelines of life, many will simply sneer at the cathedral builder who dares greatly, leaving the cathedral builder in a wake of loneliness. This loneliness is to be accepted and endured, as it is part of any path to individuation, but it can become an undue burden if the path to individuation stifles any sense of fun or duty towards others. This manifests itself when the cathedral builder begins viewing friends and family who want his time, either to solicit his help or do something fun together, as competitive with his goals rather than complementary. Instead of seeing those activities and relationships as balancing forces, he sees them as distractions. Ironically, the cathedral builder hurts himself in the long term with this approach. While neglecting those relationships can help him make progress on his cathedral in the short term, ignoring his fundamental desires and dismantling his community will create real problems for him in the long term. I won't attempt to speculate on where a path of individuation ventures into a path of relationship-damaging obsession, since it is highly dependent on each person's temperament. Everyone has their own balance between individuation, duty, and hedonism that fits their personal context. We can always look to emotions as indicators. If loneliness continuously pervades the cathedral builder's mind, they may have found an imbalance towards individuation. The Renaissance man's pain. The pain of lacking relational depth. The Renaissance man and his disposition for novelty may create challenges in his relationships. Perhaps he finds himself bored of people once he gets to know them well enough. Maybe he puts friends into an archetypical box after seeing enough of their personality. "I've seen this before," he says to himself, as the excitement of a new friend wears off, and their less desirable personality traits feel too mundane or troublesome to keep around. Before much depth can be reached, the Renaissance man keeps this person at arm's distance in their search of more excitement and novelty. While these relationship challenges could seem a bit dramatic, a Renaissance man could find a similar boredom from living in one physical location. Driven by exploration, the novelty of one location's culture, food, and inhabitants can wear off, making even the biggest cities feel stifling. The Renaissance man may be inclined to uproot his life in search of novelty. There's an entire world to see after all. This becomes especially easy in a world where remote work enables free movement without the instability of a job change. The impact of these decisions can be mitigated in a world where relationships can be maintained virtually, but it can be challenging to maintain depth of relationships at a distance. And that might be just enough of a barrier for the Renaissance man, more focused on novelty. To avoid such needless pain caused by his tendencies, the Renaissance man must find roots. He can't give in to exploration in all aspects of his life, lest he becomes a nomad or a recluse, and while he brings home with him wherever he goes, loneliness or guilt eat at his heart on a deeper level. This is because he neglects his fundamental desires, duty towards others. For the Renaissance man, these feelings eventually cloud his creative spirit. Like trying to ignite a soaked log, the sparks of creativity cannot bring forth a roaring flame when the mind is dampened by more pressing problems, like the neglect of fundamental desires. The pain of shiny object syndrome. The very boredom applied to people or physical locations can create a new type of pain when it is applied to the topics the Renaissance man studies. We call this the pain of shiny object syndrome. He may jump from shiny object to slightly shinier object through the Dunning-Kruger effect, a phenomenon that occurs where confidence peaks at the slightest amount of knowledge or experience. The Renaissance man may find himself content or bored once he's reached the peak of Mount Stupid. Confidence soars because he whetted his appetite, but he knows very little. He may be inclined to take that confidence and carry it into a new area of study, leaving him on the peak of Mount Stupid in multiple domains. This tendency becomes painful in retrospect, as all the momentum in their creative endeavors gets killed before it can begin. The best course of action for the Renaissance man is to be willing to delay gratification in their intellectual pursuits and embrace the valley of despair before moving on. If he gives in to his tendencies too early, he becomes a micro-learner whose knowledge barely surpasses the surface level, like the local bar's unemployed trivia champion. While impressive to some, this is almost assuredly not a path to individuation. The pain of missing greatness. Where the cathedral builder feels the pain of opportunity costs, the Renaissance man feels the pain of missing greatness. Witnessing someone halfway finished with an impressive cathedral may be painful for the Renaissance man, especially if he has nothing that resembles tangible progress to an outsider. He may question his path and wonder if he's been left behind by his cathedral-building peers. The Renaissance man must recognize that he is a second-half player. Chasing his curiosities in different domains doesn't always yield an apparent benefit, until they are put together in a creative way later in life. He also must recognize that the way he creatively joins disparate ideas may never lead him to greatness. Instead, his legacy may be the blueprint to the cathedral somebody else actually builds. Of course, the pain here is that building the cathedral is concrete and easier to recognize. Few people know the work that went into creating the blueprint. Another way to describe the pain of missing greatness is the pain of no external validation. Outsiders are more likely to see the Renaissance man as a useless ideas guy and misunderstand his contributions to the cathedral built by his peers, even if it was his vision. This is because if the Renaissance man wants someone to actually execute on his vision, he needs to convince others that it was their idea in the first place. The Renaissance man must be intrinsically motivated and have his own internal scorecard for what a good day looks like, because if he lets the world tell him this, he'll always be disappointed. Conclusion. To conclude, let us return to Alexis Carrel's famous quote that illustrates the path of individuation. Man cannot remake himself without suffering, for he is both the marble and the sculptor. The path of individuation is not for the weak-hearted. Pain is necessary, and your pain tolerance can limit how high you climb. But this doesn't mean you should needlessly endure pain, because too much pain leaves you scarred. Scarred marble dampens the beauty of the sculpture, and if you reject this scarred image, it takes more time to buff it out or find a new piece of marble to reshape the sculpture. By understanding the types of pain that come with each form of marble, you are better prepared because 1. You can better understand if you really want to walk that path. 2. You can refine your sculpting techniques so you don't scar the marble in the first place.